Dave Robbins with End Time Ministries. I do thank you for joining me on this edition of the End Time Show. Had a great conference, prophecy conference in Providence, Rhode Island this last weekend, and very thankful for that. We signed them up a bunch of Bible studies, and what a wonderful time that we had up there. And they're just starting the church. It's kind of in its infancy, but we had a lot of visitors come from all over Massachusetts and New York, all around. And it was a great time, so good to see everybody up in Providence, Rhode Island this last weekend. But is there any bigger story right now than President Trump winning the election? However, a lot of Christians have said, well, hey, we prayed for him to win, now he got in, and now it's time to relax. Oh, no. It's certainly not time to relax. We need to pray for President Trump. Now, we've actually got some blowback about this because some people have said, well, he's an adulterer and he lies and all this other stuff. He has done some things, obviously, I would not agree with in the past. I get it. Tell me who hasn't. I mean, Jesus said, let him that is without sin cast the first stone, right? Again, I did not vote for President Trump to be my pastor and probably wouldn't try to follow his example on how to get to heaven, right? However, if it was a choice between Kamala Harris and President Trump, the choice was super easy for me. And I want him to come to follow through on what he promised, and I think he will. A lot of stuff he did, and many of the things that he promised in 2016, he followed through on and was really a great president from 2016 to 2020. Looking forward to that again. In President Trump's 47th, now he's the 47th president of the United States, in his victory speech, he said that this will forever be remembered as the day the American people regained control of their country. That is my question to you today. Who has been controlling the country? It certainly was not Biden. Biden got blamed for a lot of things that he was just doing what he was told. Most of the time during his presidency, he didn't even know where he was at. I'm just being honest here. Kamala Harris wasn't qualified at all to be in the position of vice president. And really, she was given almost a no-win situation when it came to the election, because putting her against previous, President Trump, it was really a no contest in my opinion. But the thing is, we can't stop praying for President Trump. I mean, he's in office now. A lot of people were praying for that. However, because he stood for a lot of things that were, let's say, that were pro-Bible. Obviously, he was against the LGBTQ agendas and different things that were being pushed. And it was, when it comes to abortion, and, he got rid of Roe v. Wade and a lot of pushing it back down to the states where people had a voice. A lot of different things. Very, very pro-Israel. He was hammering Iran with sanctions and there were no wars during his term as president. I'm not saying that he can guarantee there won't be any wars in the future, because of what I'm about to talk to you about when it comes to the establishment and everything. But my question to you today is, who has been controlling the country? And I'm going to answer that. Now, it's certainly something we should be praying about, because the fight is not over yet. Donald Trump, when he got up from being shot in the ear, he said, fight, 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 right? Well, Christians fight on their knees. On your knees, you're taller than trees. You've heard that said. But we still need to pray that he can continue as president, and things will happen during the next 4 years, that he can come through on many of the things, if not all the things he promised, right? And of course, it looked like a landslide last night, and it was awesome. I honestly did not think that we would get to know the results until days or even weeks in the future. When they called it last night it was like, 1 or 2 in the morning, we stayed up and listened to it. And I was kind of shocked, but it was a good shock, really. And so I hope he can come through with everything. I mean, what are the main things that I hope he comes through with? And this will just be the beginning of the list. But the Biden and Harris administration, they just signed us on to what's called the pact for the future, basically yielding up much of our sovereignty to the United Nations and giving, if they should have an emergency situation that the United Nations deems as a global emergency, giving Antonio Guterres dictatorial powers. The Biden-Harris administration signed us on to that. I believe that Trump needs to pull us out of the United Nations, period. Defund it, pull us out of it. We don't want any part of the United Nations. It goes completely against our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. So we don't want anything to do with that. We certainly would like Trump to secure our borders, right? Allow people to come in, but they must come in legally. We've got to know who's in our country. We certainly want to be energy independent again. I remember President Trump saying many times, within the first year, I can drop energy prices 50%. I hope he's able to do that. We want to put the power to control our economy back in the hands of Congress, where the Constitution gives them the power. We want to take it out of the hands of the Federal Reserve Bank. Be a huge undertaking, but hopefully, with God's help, Donald Trump is up to the challenge. We want to take back the power from the establishment that has been running America for years. We need to reinstate economic sanctions on Iran, all the while supporting Israel in every way, arming them, whatever they need, as they fight the Iranian Ring of Fire. We need to keep the filibuster. We need to not pack the Supreme Court. Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., they need not to become states. And the Equality Act, which would give special privileges to the LGBTQ crowd, and we don't need that to become law. Donald Trump needs to keep that from happening. We need to also, and I heard him say this when we were at the meeting in North Carolina a couple weeks ago, that he would keep men out of women's sports in their locker rooms. The Biden-Harris administration were pushing for that. They were pushing for the Equality Act. Donald Trump said, no, we are simply going to ban that. Well, me as a Christian minister, that's what I want. There's no room for men and young boys going into playing in girls' sports and going in and changing in their locker rooms and showering with them and stuff. What kind of America do we want to have, right? And I want President Trump to unleash the American economy. Be nice if he could use the tariffs to pay off our debt. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? And of course, there's much more. He made many promises, and I'd love to see him fulfill them. Thing is, can he, and one of the number one things is, can he end the wars as promised? Ukraine and the Israel-Iran situation. My question to you today, though, is how will he fare against the establishment? He fought it the first time, but now he's going to try to do some even bigger things. Last time his presidency kind of took off like a jet airplane, a big, huge jet going overseas, really slow. This time it's going to take off like a helicopter. Just wait and see. He's already been in there 4 years. He knows which levers to pull and which buttons to push. He knows how to get that thing up and running quickly. But the establishment, how are they going to try to hamper what he's doing? The establishment that has been running our country for decades now, close to 100 years at least. This is Trump's number one enemy, the establishment, the global establishment. Is it possible that they could start World War III in an effort to retain or increase their power? Certainly it's time scripturally, prophetically, for World War III. Donald Trump says we won't have a World War III while he's in office, but I don't know if he could stop it even if he wanted to. If the establishment wanted to start World War III, he's going to have to deal with it. The Western Standard actually said, goodbye, this is a title of the article, Goodbye Globalism. The World Economic Forum is worried that the New World Order is going to be destroyed if Trump gets elected. There's a lot of leaders around the world that are scared to death about what Trump's going to do to tear down their house of cards. Yuval Noah Harari, he's an advisor to Klaus Schwab. He outright admitted the World Economic Forum's globalist agenda would come to a grinding halt if President Trump was elected. So, again, the question is, how will the global establishment respond? I don't think a lot of people understand who or what the global establishment is that Donald Trump will fight every day that he's president.
As soon as you say end time, they say, whoa, the end of the world. When's it going to be? And you can see this mask of fear. I'm not telling you the end time is coming. I'm telling you, you live in it right now. Daniel chapter number 7, verse number 4. The first beast was like a lion. We have the eagle used continually to depict the United States of America. You see it on governmental We are the generation for which these that you will not miss one segment of understanding the end time, because I've had many people tell me it's changed their life forever. Many of the major prophecies of the Bible are given to us 2, 3, some of them as high as 4 or 5 times. There is not any chance it's not going to happen, because it's in your Bible, it's prophesied, and the prophecies always coming back.
Getting into this establishment and everything, I want to first talk to you really quick. The Israel Hayam, they published an article. Biden will bash Israel in the interim between presidents. You say, what do you mean? The lame duck session. Now that President Trump's been elected, he's not going to be inaugurated until January 20. Guess who's in office till then? Biden and Harris. So there's a 2 or 3 month stretch here, just under 3 months, that they're still going to retain power. So Israel's got to be prepared to weather this November to January interim chapter between U.S. presidents following the decisive win by Donald Trump. Now, in the past, this transition period has proven perilous in our U.S. policy and the U.S.-Israel relationships. You remember, a classic example would be when President Barack Obama and Biden, that they, in the decision back in December 2016, as President Obama was about to depart the White House after being 8 years from really bullying on Prime Minister Netanyahu, he lambasted Israel one last time by allowing the passage of the UN Security Council Resolution 2334. That happened in the lame duck session between when President Trump was elected and when he was inaugurated. Well, that's where we're at right now. That resolution, which the Obama White House deviously helped to craft, on which the United States then abstained, allowing it to pass, it declared that the settlements in East Jerusalem and the West Bank were a flagrant violation of international law. What is less known, this is something I don't know if I've ever reported on here before, but Obama planned a second and even worse UN Security Council resolution at that time, which was scuttled only by the willingness of Russian President Vladimir Putin to veto the effort. And according to the reports, Netanyahu appealed personally to Vladimir Putin about this, and the President-elect Trump's team also played a role in that. So it was revealed years later that in 2020 by the Israeli media, the second resolution would have imposed international parameters and mandated an irreversible timeline for an Israeli-Palestinian final status agreement, meaning that the establishment of a full-fledged runaway Palestinian state would be created, and it would give the Palestinians statehood. President Obama and Biden were trying to do this during that lame duck session, but the Trump administration got involved, the incoming Trump administration, and the Netanyahu went to Vladimir Putin, and Vladimir Putin said, I'm going to veto that. Now, this is what was going on. A lot of people didn't know all this. So it's something to watch between now and the inauguration of President Trump. A lot of things could happen in that, 2.5 months there. And so it's something for us to watch because of the past. Now, I want to talk to you today about the establishment. A lot of people have no idea what that is. They think, well, hey, Republicans won and Democrats lost and yeehaw. I heard people say, well, it's a two-party thing. Listen, what Donald Trump will be fighting every day that he's in office, it is, so on the news would say the Democrats this, the Democrats this. They never mention the establishment. The establishment is the one that's in control. So it's not really and a lot of people say, well, we got control of the House and, control of the Senate and this, that, and the other, but there's still all the rhinos. So you got to we'll just have to see how all this shakes out. At the end of the day, God's in control. I'm not worried about it, but we still need to talk about it, right? We're going to be living through the decisions of some of these things, but many people do not understand it's really not Donald Trump per se against the Democrats. Will be Donald Trump and his administration against the establishment. There is a global establishment, and there's an extension of that in the United States, and it's our national establishment. But it's all the same thing. The global and national establishment, they're all working to create a world governing body. Now, I want to explain this to you because there are a lot of people that don't even when you think about this stuff, they think of people praying to Lucifer and just all kinds of crazy things come into mind here. Well, they may not be too far off. I'm reading the book now of Gary Carr. I just had him on the radio program last week. I'm reading through his book, En Route to Global Occupation. He wrote the book in 1992, but it's almost like the book was written yesterday. It's unbelievable. But he goes into the history of this establishment. And until you know what really is going on here, you would think, well, it's Donald Trump against Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. I heard Nancy Pelosi got back in, by the way. What in the world are people thinking? But it's not Donald Trump against them. They are part of the establishment, okay? So in Gary Carr's book, I want to go through a few excerpts that I pulled from his book. It's a great book, En Route to Global Occupation by Gary Carr. Gary Carr starts out by talking about global economics. Okay, Revelation 13 talks about a world government, a world religion, and a global economic sanctioning system. It's going to be global. Well, in Gary Carr's book, he starts out with global economics. If you've never read the book, I would certainly encourage it. It will help you understand what's really going on in the United States and what has been going on for over 100 years now, before World War I, okay? Gary Carr says this, I'm quoting, "Forces behind the big bank mergers already control the American banking industry indirectly via the Federal Reserve System. This has been the case ever since the Feds established the Federal Reserve in 1913. Contrary to public belief, the Federal Reserve is not a government institution. It's a privately held corporation owned by stockholders. It is a cartel of private bankers." This is Donald Trump. This is part of the establishment, everybody. You've got to understand this. And we all thought, for many years, it's the Republicans and the Democrats. No, it's good versus evil, because you're going to see that Satan's behind all this. Yes, that's true. That's not some kind of a myth or a fairy tale or sensationalism to keep you listening to the program. It's very, very true. We've got to understand what's going on. That's why we can't quit praying for Donald Trump. Gary Carr goes on to say, because of the way in which the Federal Reserve System was designed by its founders, whoever controls the Federal Reserve Bank of New York essentially controls the entire economic system of America. For all practical purposes, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York is the Federal Reserve. Currently, more than 90 of the 100 largest banks in the United States. Now, this is in 92. Now it's totally changed. There's basically one big bank, the Federal Reserve. The United States are located within District Class A stockholders. They control the system by owning the stock of the largest member banks in the New York Federal Reserve. And the controlling interest is held by fewer than a dozen international banking establishments, only 4 of which are based in the United States. You say, well, hold on a second. There's foreign banking involved in the United States of America? Oh, yes, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It's not just the Republicans and Democrats. We've had them dangled out in front of us for years. It's really good versus evil. The rest of the interest are the Europeans, the European banks, with the most influential of these being the Rothschild family of London. Many of you probably have heard about them. You don't really understand how diabolical that family is, okay? Each of the American interests are in some way connected to the Rothschilds family, including among these are the Rockefellers, who are by far the most powerful of the Fed's American stockholders. The Rockefellers holding in the Federal Reserve are primary through the Chase Manhattan Bank. Now, again, folks, he's writing this in 92. We're way past this at this point. But I wanted you to hear the history of this because they never even dreamed of talking about this in high school and college. Unless you do some deep dive into some of these subjects, you're never going to get this. You're always going to think you're going to be led along like, well, the Republicans lost, the Democrats won. Oh, now the Republicans won this year and the Democrats. No. What Donald Trump is fighting is very spiritual because these people are involved there's a religious aspect to this. Listen to this. The Rothschild family has been allied with the Masonic order, Freemasonry, since back in the late 1700s. At that time, they were still a relatively small, although ambitious, banking concern based in Frankfurt, Germany. By cooperating with the secret societies, however, the Rothschilds would be able to expand their banking operations into other European countries, benefiting from the extensive international business and political contacts of Freemasonry. There's a religious element. There's an entity that runs all of this, okay? The Bible says that the dragon or Satan would give all this entity its seat, power, and great authority. Well, wait till you hear what I have to say in the rest of the program. Americans have been dumbed down. The people of the world have been dumbed down to where they would think, there's been great secrecy associated with all this. When they control the media and social networking and the education establishment, none of this is ever talked about. People have done some deep dives into the history of all this, and that's what I'm sharing with you today. I don't know if I've ever been this deep in some of this stuff on any program I've ever done. So, the Rothschilds, they've used these connections with Freemasonry to get involved in other European countries, and they've used these international business and political contacts of Freemasonry, which was already well established throughout the continent, and Freemasonry, on the other hand, needed money to finance its efforts to build a new world order. And the Rothschilds would be able to provide those funds. Thus, each party would benefit from each other, right? By the 1820s, the Rothschilds had become the dominant banking family of Europe, controlling the fastest growing banking house in France, Europe, Austria, Italy, and Germany. Operations in these countries were overseen by the 5 Rothschild brothers, each of whom controlled a different country. Those bankers who allied themselves with the Rothschilds and the Masonic order became wealthy in their own right, and those who didn't would find the going pretty tough, right? You can only imagine. Well, during the late 1800s, the Rothschilds began to finance various American industrialists as well, and they would do so primarily through the Warburgs of Germany, who were partners in the Kuhn, Loeb and Company of New York. And in this fashion, the Rothschild Masonic interest would gain a foothold in the administration of the United States of America's finances. So, when we talk about the establishment, I'm laying the groundwork here. In the rest of the program, I'm going to build the whole scenario for you to let you know what Donald Trump is going to face throughout the next 4 years. The other administration, the outgoing administration, they were part of the establishment. Donald Trump is against the establishment, and that's going to be his main fight for the next 4 years.